33 years old. I've been teaching for like more than 10 years, but I'm in the public for like 5 years. Last August 23 was my 5th year in the public school, and as a SPED receiving, I've been teaching in the inclusion program for 4 years. In other words, we pioneered the special education inclusion program in the secondary. We've got a new curriculum already, like we shifted to K to 12 curriculum. So my assigned levels are grades 7, 8, 9, and 10. And because our school head actually created a SPED team that would cater Asian classes in our school. So that because not all teachers in the school are so completely aware of how to handle different, we don't even call it a disability, but we call it a different needs of our children. So since there are only few teachers, a group of let's say 7 or 8 probably. Yeah, 8 teachers. A group of 8 teachers are given training, seminar, and workshops how to handle inclusion programs. So our school had decided to create a SPED team, and each teacher for a particular subject should handle across the level. That means I'm teaching English, and that's grade 7, 8, 9, and 10. That's a lot because I've got to prepare 4 lessons, 4 learning materials, 4 instructional plans, and that's every day. It's hard, but if you have a big heart, well, I'm pretty much sure that all those teachers in the inclusion program have really a big heart. Actually, they're not difficult to deal with. The regular ones are difficult. What makes our class unique is that unlike in any Asian country that's actually offering for inclusion program, it's just 2:35. That means in a population of 35, we just have to include 2 learners with different needs. But in my school, that's quite different since it's so young, the program is so young, and we lack teachers who are well trained in handling inclusion programs. Particularly in our grade 7, we've got 13 deaf students, 1 ADD, 1 GDD, and let alone those not diagnosed properly. Because the one that we considered as learners with different needs are those who were already handed coming from the SPED centers. Now, technically speaking, these students are not at their regular age. Okay, because in the Philippines, if you enter grade 7, you must be at least 13 years old. I've got one in grade 9. He's already 27 years old. He's deaf. Okay. Yes. And that we've got also a student who was diagnosed, clinically assessed, multiple, like he has already autism, and that he has ADD and GDD as well. His age is around 18 years old, and he is still at grade 9. And we have mild autism, same in grade 9, 20 years old. Not typical for a grade 9 student. No. So as what I've said, grade 7 should be 13, grade 8 should be 14, grade 9 should be 15 years old, and grade 10 should be 16 years old. Very far. Well, as expected, because these are children with learners with different needs. In terms of our deaf students, some of them are highly functional. Okay, when we say highly functional, they can really pursue their academic pursuits when they go to senior high school, or even if they go to college or universities. Where in fact last year we had at least 5 who graduated in grade 10. They were completers of grade 10, and right now they're studying in a senior high school.
Wow.
At the first year that we had this inclusion program, it was like it was a crazy thing every day. But then we did survive because, like for example, in our grade 8 right now, we've got one totally blind, two GDD, and another disabilities that are in that class. In grade 9, we've got mild autism, multiple, GDD, ADD, and ADHD, and one deaf. In grade 10, we have cerebral palsy, that's one, and we've got LD around 3 to 4, and then we've got deaf for like 3 students, and then we've got low vision, 1. So you could imagine that they're in one class, let alone the regular student. They would actually comprise, especially our grade 7, half of the population is actually learners with different needs. But just like what I've said, once you have a big heart, you're gonna have to step up. And every time you come to the class, you would love to teach. Because for me, I've been dealing with learners with different needs for like 4 years since the program has started. I could say I don't have any problems with them. I've got a lot of problems with the regular students, the typically developed ones, but not with the children with special needs. Yeah, normally the assessment would take place in the elementary years or in the secondary years. Well, these students were into a class with learners with different needs who were assessed when they were in elementary. But I know pretty much you and I would agree that the assessment would have to take place in the elementary years. Because assessment would take place like every 2 years. See if the students have progressed or are not, or the learning ability has been taken off by the student. However, in the secondary, we don't consider that. We don't do assessment. But for those who were not assessed, for those when they came in or when they come to our grade 7, there were no assessments made. Because we cannot say no to a public school student who's enrolling in our school. There are some instances that we do assessment, but this assessment is not done by a legit psychiatrist, psychology, or even the deathbed. Alright? Again, the school doesn't have that. And if the students, or if the parents want their children to be assessed, they've got to be referred to a legit psychiatrist, or a deathbed, or a psychologist. Something that we don't have because this is very expensive, you know that. So expensive in the Philippines. We have a child clinically assessed as to what particular SME he has. But during our trainings, I could remember like 2 years ago, we were given a tool or kit, assessment kit for a particular like disability or special needs. So the process is that we in the STEM team are considered to be the legit in the student. Legit ones who are going to do assessment. So first, any advisor or any subject teacher should refer a child to us. And then the child will be under several observations. And if our observations and the observations of the teacher or the subject teacher along with the other subject teachers to conform to each other, the next step is that we in the research team will talk about it. And then we're going to call the parents, a conference to it. For that, you're going to have to refer. If the parents say no, there's nothing you can do about it. But if the parents is submissive, okay, I think even if it's difficult on their part to accept it, it's a matter of how we explain it. The tool that we have is not really actually coming from a legit one, because you know that the assessment tool must only be given to a licensed deathbed psychiatrist or psychologist. If we really want that our students will be checking into it. But in our team, yes, because we were trained also to spot symptoms or even like indicators that this child has, for example, ADHD, ADD, EDD. We have that tool. That tool is devised by our SED coordinator in the Division of Anthropology. So the entire division is using that. But again, I would say that it's not a legit. It's a teacher-initiated assessment tool coming from the different tools that they got from the training. That's how we assess our. Once the student is referred to a psychiatrist, the parents are obliged to give us the clinical, the abstract thing or the clinical assessment. We have no contact to the psychologist or the deaf vet, but some are very much willing because we don't have public psychologists like we have a public nurse, we've got public teachers, but we don't have that in the Philippines. Too expensive, Christine. The government couldn't afford that. As far as I know, our SPED Center is doing that. Okay, our SPED Center is doing that. For those elementary public schools, hopefully by 2018, our Department of Education will have its kick-off, the Real Inclusion Program across the country. So we don't know yet what would be the division or what would be the Department of Education's program, but we're expecting that this coming March or May, that would be our summer break, all the teachers in the elementary years would undergo trainings for the inclusion program. Because hopefully by the start of 2018, 2019, we start in June, hopefully we would have our first kickoff, and that's across the country. Now, these students who are already enrolled and accepted in the secondary schools are those that were assessed and evaluated as highly functional. So they don't do that already in the secondary. But what we do as a SPED receiving teacher, as part of our commitment to becoming a SPED receiving teacher, is that we do intervention programs. So math has its own intervention program. English has its own intervention program along with the other subjects. The students have to stay for like 1 to 30 minutes in the intervention room exclusively just for the learners with different needs. They're given, because our aim is for them to be part, to cope with whatever lessons. So for instance, in my class, let's say the topic is cases of pronouns, and after the assessment at the day, they found it difficult, then I have to give the intervention right away. So the parents are already aware that from Monday to Friday, the students should stay in the school. These are learners with different needs. And not just that, I am also handling intervention with the students even if they don't have different needs. These are what we call low performing students in the class. Not necessarily that they have special needs. Could you imagine I'm doing 2 types of intervention at the same time? But of course, it boils down to how big our hearts and serving this children. And I'm very proud. In my school, I don't know with the other schools, but in my school, it is customary that before the school year begins, the first day, there must be proper orientation side by side with the parents whose children are typically developed, along with the parents whose children are having learners with different needs or diagnosed with learners with different needs. I could say that the chemistry at the first year of implementing the inclusion program, there were lots of confusions, there were lots of questions, not just from parents, but of course teachers as well, who don't believe in inclusion programs. But our school head, along with the programs of our division, was actually quite successful to not really eradicate, but at least lessen the stigmatism that our children, learners with different needs, same with their parents would feel. I could say, Christine, in my four inclusion classes, the chemistry between learners with different needs and the typically developed children are really good. Oh no, I could say that they love these children. The one that I've said is really big, and his best friend is typically developed. And we have this chemistry. If you have activities in the school, you don't have to worry that they will be left behind. They're part of the group, and they're scattered in different groups in the class. I don't see any problem. The students, those typically developed students are well aware. Well, the level of awareness, I could say, is like 90%. Sometimes, these are just kids. Sometimes they do little bullying, but we know how to handle it. So probably they just a joke for them, but not really a real case with our children with different needs or bullying or verbally abused or things like. No, 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 no. We don't have that in the school. We established that completely or totally before the start of the school, all throughout. Just in case there's some little bullying, that should be addressed right away. Not necessarily that we've got to bring them to the guidance office, but of course, the subject because what's good in our program is that all those handling special inclusion programs from grade 7 to grade 10 are the same. So like me and the teacher, the math teacher is also the math in grade 7, 8, 9, 10. Same with social science, and history, everything. I don't see that as a problem. They've got good chemistry. They are not bullied. I could say that. I'm very proud that we in the inclusion program in the SPED team was able to clear that to our students with typically developing, even the parents. I don't see, it's not in the history of the school since the 4 years has been operational. I did not see a parent who complained against a special need child. No, we don't have, even when it comes to grades. They're very aware that, let's say, there is a student who failed in my class, but the special child passes. I was expecting that the parent of that typically student would come and then question me, how did you grade my son? No. When we had the conference, the teacher parent conference, they totally understood. No questions about it. It's up to the parents, actually, not up to the who. It's up to the parents. For instance, there is one that student or maybe a couple of students that are enrolled not in the inclusion classes, but we found some signs or symptoms that the child is suspected ADHD, ADD, just like what I've said, call the parents and then refer them. But the payment, the government does not give us support. Well, I would be very honest, it might be brutal for my government, but that is really what is happening here. The government only gives free education, but the testing, the standardized test, it would be up to the parents. And considering that the students are coming from the public schools and most of them are coming from the poor families, you know what? They couldn't really afford. So some some teachers in our SPED team, we decide to contribute. We contribute something just for the child to be assessed without asking any return or without asking any praises from the school head or of course from the supervisors of our Department of Education in our division. We don't. We just do this because we love and we want the kids to be happy. Well, as of now, since the inclusion program is so primitive, the government doesn't supply that. We don't receive any support from the government. But like what I've said, based on the international training that I just attended months ago, we were able to speak to the director of the special education in the Department of Education. They plan to do that. And since the rollout or the kickoff would take place this coming 2018 in June, so probably they would have it in the elementary years, but not in the secondary. Those that are not highly functional would go to the transition program, and only the elementary SED center has the kind of program. Once they assess that the child with a special need or a different need is highly functional and is capable of learning in high school, in the junior high school, then they issue a card that is good for the enrollment for the secondary. But for those who are not highly functional, Christine, they're not left behind, but they would go to the transition program. And the transition program in the elementary going to as a different road compared to attending a regular junior high school. That's something that I have no idea because right now I am so focused in the inclusion program in the secondary level.
Very cool.
Yes, I could say one thing that we did notice, not just myself, but along with the other teachers, even the non-SPED receiving teachers, is the socialization. We both know that children with different needs have really a huge problem when it comes to social skills. It's not just their intellectual skills or their IQ, but the main problem is their behavior inside, the drooling thing, the kicking thing, the head-butting thing, especially for the ADHD and autism, children with autism. Now, one thing that is so good, and I would say as a SPED receiving teacher, that is a benefit in inclusion program is the improvement of socialization or the social skills. You know what? You know that autism, they don't like to be part of any territory. They always secure. They don't want to be hugged. They don't want to be tickled. Now, I've got this grade 9 student. At first, when he was in grade 7, he had this kicking, hitting. Now, as he continues, now he's grade 9. You know what? He loves to be cuddled. He loves to be hugged, and he follows instructions when his peers or classmates would tell him the right thing to do. At first in grade 7, he would just, keep on standing, running in the field when he heard something that would prompt him to run in the court. Now, he doesn't do that. The best friend of this child with autism would just say, okay, we're not friends anymore, so you gotta have to sit down, and he would say, sorry, 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 I'll sit, Kevin, sit. Oh, that's really nice. Not just that. For those students who we don't have formal sign language study. I don't do that. Actually, I don't have one. I wish I could have once I finish my master's degree in special education. That's my next plan. But because we want to communicate to our students, we learn on our own, and not just the teachers. Also, the classmates. You would be surprised that they're already talking and using the language of the deaf. For those children who are clinically assessed as ADHD, sometimes they don't care if they hurt or, the impulse. Well, they learn how to say sorry. And that's the good thing of having an inclusion program. I love that. I love that fact that our children are growing side by side with the typically developed children know also the world of these children with different needs. And that's good to know when you observe them interacting. That's beyond the money that I receive as a teacher. That's the priceless thing that I could see.
It sounds like you've made huge progress.
It's just the teachers and the SPED team. But we have a SPED coordinator who normally coordinates with the parents. But we are also given the privilege to coordinate with the parents directly. But when it comes to extra services, like really, I understand what you are trying to tell me, that like we've got to have OT for occupational therapy and other services that should be given to them, considered that we are in the inclusion program, but we don't have one. And I'm crossing my fingers. I'm really praying that the government would really looked into this, since their program in 2018 is full inclusion program in the elementary, going to secondary. I hope that they are cooking something right now to improve and to give the support, because they really need support. I would agree with you. Our services, it's not primitive. I would say there are no services given. It's up to the parents, it's up to the teachers, it's up to the advisor if he or she wishes to, use his or her own money for the child. But other than that, no, the government doesn't pay. I hope, because I see it as a very good tool. If only these children, right, there are no tools, there are no services provided to them, especially transition in the secondary. We don't have that in my division. But during the seminar that I attended, some divisions in the Philippines have already transition programs in the secondary. Non-government organizations are helping them up with other local business. That's really good. But in my division, we haven't started that yet. We plan to make it, but it's going to be a long journey and it requires a lot of preparation. I hope, Christine, because right now they are surviving. How much they have only if the different support and services would be given to them at the moment. I could say that they would excel a lot. They would improve a lot. Right now, we just do whatever we have. It's the generosity, it's the kindness, it's the being resourceful of the teacher that keep the inclusion program going. The government support, no. I hope that they would do something about it.
Well, it sounds like your program is just so young that there's still a long
Oh
way
yeah.
to go, but it sounds like everything's in the right step. You have to work pretty closely with the parents in order, since you don't have those in your toolbox. The parents have to be your biggest resource.
Well, in the first few years, yes, we do have, but we did notice that this year, I don't know what's going on with the parents, but every time we ask for a parent-teacher meeting, not just the regular, because we do quarterly. So aside from the quarterly conferences, we do also weekly or sometimes twice a month. Some parents would not be able to come, especially those parents that are really working afar. So we could understand that. Could understand. Of course, they would just choose work over than having a conference. But there are still many parents very supportive. In fact, they would just come to you and they would ask you, teacher, what can we help? Are we going to donate? Are we going to buy television? Are we going to buy like this? These parents are very supportive parents to those children with different needs. And something that we want to continue, that kind of tradition, this kind of culture, it's something that we want to continue. So, well, I'm very grateful also that you chose me to be part of this thing, your activity in your journey as a teacher. And I think, Christine, what spells the difference is our huge heart for the special children. In our STED team, all the teachers in the STED team are hard to teach special child. That don't maybe this is good for other jobs or other work, because it takes really a huge heart. You've got to love them because they're amazing. They're perfect, and not because they have this disability. We don't consider them as able individuals. They are in their own unique ways. Now that is our mantra on our STEM team. We've got to increase awareness that the children are capable, and they have also unlimited possibilities. It's up to the teachers to see the potential of every child, even those who have this special needs. Because I believe every child is special. We all have our different needs, not just those special needs. We all have different needs. Love this bed, and thank you so much.